Hi, as you can tell, this tutorial is going to be about the daily action tracker, but specifically an updated version of it because the last video is now out of date. So yeah, how you get here is you probably went to my templates home and then you clicked on the Life Hub, and then one of the first pages is the daily actions page. And in here, how this works is you have two sections. So one is running notes. I just, this is not fancy. I just take notes in one, place during the day. So I pin this tab. You would right click it and press pin. This says pin. It will probably say pin in whatever language your browser is in. And then you'd pin it, and that way whenever I'm doing anything throughout the day, I always have it right here, and I will go back and take notes on whatever and then put those notes in the right place later on. So that's how I use this notes section. It's not fancy, like I said. It's more just because if you have really detailed and structured online notebooks, so a database where you take notes or whatnot, you aren't gonna when you want to note down something really quickly, you aren't going to have the time when you're noting it down quickly to find the right place to put it. So you want to make it really easy for yourself to just take notes here, otherwise you aren't going to end up taking notes here. So what I do is I just take notes here really quickly throughout the day, and at the end of the day or at the end of the week, I'll go in and I'll put these notes in the correct place. So if it's an idea for something, I'll put it in the right ideas database, or if it's related to a project, I'll put it in my action tracker database that has that project. And that's pretty much it. And now we have the second more important place. So we have the action tracker, and that is one big database that houses any small to-do, so call mom, up to really big projects like your senior thesis, or even something bigger. And how this works is that you want to put literally everything in here. So every single thing that you are doing, whether it be a big project or a small to-do, you put it in here. And then when you properly tag it, it will show up at the right time, in the right order of priority, with the right tags, in the right places, and basically do your job of figuring out what you need to do for you. So I'll show you how you make the different types of to-dos and actions you can put in here, how you tag them, and some ways to use it effectively. There are lots of properties, don't get freaked out. Luckily, you can now hide properties, so you won't see all of them, but there are a lot of properties in here. So let's just look at this quick action. So we can see it has the name. We have whether or not it's done, so if it's done, I would just click done. You notice that it just moved out of this view because I clicked done. And then we have some important tags and properties that you have to apply to it. So one, you have to say whether it's important or not important. And how this works is I have two categories to just not make it so in the middle. Somebody said once that that's good because if you have a medium priority or a medium importance, you'll always put everything on medium and then it won't mean anything. So we'll pretend that was my reasoning and not just because I was lazy. But high, the way that I think about it is high importance means if this thing doesn't get done, that would be a problem. It would be a legitimate problem if it weren't done. So really only put things there that you actually at some point need to do. And then if that at some point is it needs to happen explicitly by a certain date. So there are two kinds of important things. There's the important thing that you have to get done by Friday or some specific date, and then there's the important thing that needs to get done at a certain point, but it doesn't need to get done really quickly or at a specific date. Then there's low importance, which is things that you can do them, and a lot of times maybe you should, but it's okay if it doesn't get done either for a very long time or right now. And then low and set. So set means set date, set deadline. What that means is that it's low importance but a set deadline. So, which is self-explanatory. But basically, let's say that I maybe want to apply to this program or project or something, but I don't really care about it too much, but the deadline is tomorrow, or it has a deadline. If it's low importance but it's a set deadline, then that means that do it or don't do it, but it doesn't matter if you do it or you don't do it, but you do have to do it by a certain date if you're going to do it. So that's what that means. You also have the date, and so the way that you should treat this is if it's a project, treat it as the entire project. So let's say that this was an entire project, I'd put an end date, and let's say I want to work on it for a few weeks, or actually this is like a month, then I would want that to be, I would say that that's the entire time that I'm working on it. Otherwise, put in like the actual day that you're going to work on it. So let's say that's buy a week's groceries, I would put it in the day that I want to go buy those groceries. So that's kind of, yeah, the single day that I'm going to do that. The estimated time is how long is it going to take you to do that? Do you estimate how long is it going to take you to do that? After you're done doing it, you can go in and fix that number. The reason why you put this in comes up later. Then you have the status, and there are 6 statuses. There used to be 5. This is one of the things I changed. Not started, self-explanatory. All the other ones are self-explanatory. And then pending is for something that, for example, you wrote something and you're getting editing feedback. So it's not something you have to do. It's something that you'll eventually need to nudge somebody to help you out again. But basically it's pending. It's pending something else. And that also is a new thing. So if you do that, if you put it on pending, it will go away, but then it will come back 2 days later and kind of nudge you to do something about it, which you, at that point, you can just you can click in and hit pending again, and it will go away again. And that's just a kind of, it's almost like a snooze button. Tags, so there are 3-ish kind of tags. So there is an area. And so let's say you're a student, you have a job, and you're applying for other jobs, and you also have a personal life, hopefully. That would be like the 4 areas of your life. So you have kind of academics, professional career development work, the specific job that you're working in, and personal. So they're the main areas of your life. So like really big, broad sweeping. And then each area has its own subjects, and sometimes those subjects go in between. So learning. So I have to, maybe it's learning would be like research this topic. Maybe you have to research that topic, but research can happen in your personal life, it can happen in your academic life, it can happen in your professional life. Planning can happen in all those places. A communication, if I need to email someone, I might need to email someone for school, I might need to email someone for work, I might need to email them for X, Y, Z reason. And so those subjects kind of, you can go throughout those areas. And this helps you filter this later on. Let's say when you only want to look at financial to-dos, it allows you to filter to only see financial subject, right? Or if I only want to see things that I'm working on for school, then I can filter to only see things that are tagged academic. Or if I only want to see things that I'm doing that have to do with communication and professional development, I can filter to only see communication and professional. So things that are tagged with those those 2 things. So I've numbered these, and these numbers mean that they're the things that you need to fill out. And we'll talk about how it can be easy to fill those out later on. But for now, just know that you need to fill those out. The absolute things that you need to fill out are status, date, and importance. Like, it won't work. The other automations won't work otherwise. Tags, you really should tag this, because otherwise if you filter later on, it won't show up. And estimated time is more for determining progress later on. Okay, so then we get into the first automatic, what do you call these? Automatic things. So this automatically tells you what your priority is. So here it's telling me that it's on my plate. It's not an absolute priority because it doesn't have a hard deadline, but it is on my plate. It is something I should get done. You can change this wording by clicking here. It's a formula, and going to wherever it says on my plate and editing that. I wouldn't suggest you do because I don't want you to break it. The other thing it can tell you is high and set. So if it's a set deadline and the priority is high, and if the deadline, so the set deadline is within 5 days from now, it will tell you that it's a priority task. But if this was August 9th, 2021, then it will just tell you to plan it. If it's a low priority and like far away, it will just tell you this is for a rainy day. Like, forget about it. If you like are sitting around wondering what to do, maybe it's something you can do. And then if it's low and a set deadline, and that deadline is, let's say today or within 5 days, it will tell you to shit or get off the pot, which is a fun saying to say do it or don't do it, but don't sit around twiddling your thumbs wondering if you're going to do it. Just do it or don't. So that's what that means, shit or get off the pot. And then you have a type. And so this is just a to-do. And now we get into the 22 more properties that define this template, which is absurdity. And I really hope you're watching this on like quadruple speed. Okay, so we now see a bunch of new properties filled in. So you can, when you click that show 22 more properties, you can add links. When you add links, then it will automatically show them. So let's say I add a link. So if I add that link, and I go back down and I hide these properties, you'll notice that that link is now there because this is hidden such that it's only hidden when it's empty. So when you add something, it will show up. That's just to make sure that you don't clutter this view too much because there are so many goddamn properties. Okay, you can also relate other pages. That's other pages in your, what do you call it? In your Notion, just to easily link them. Watch my video about, or a video about backlinks, because that's what I use this for. So type up Notion backlinks in YouTube, and maybe I've made a video about it by the time you watch this, or maybe I haven't, in which case there's a girl or a person with short bleached hair who made a really good video about it in like October of 2020 or something like that. So try and find that video. So now we get into the other properties that are interesting. So we have parent project and child tasks. So this is our first kind of relational property. So a relational property relates one page in a database. So this is a page in a database, or a card. I might use those terms interchangeably. It relates this to another page or another card, another page/card in either another database, to kind of show like, oh, this is related to that thing over there, or to a card/page in the same database. What that means is then I can make a project in this database, and then I can create child tasks that I need to do for that project. So this is get my groceries, but let's say that that is related to moving to X city, or yeah, example parent project. So this is a subtask of this project. I can add it to that parent project. And now it has a parent project. And that means that it is a subtask. So you'll notice that this used to say a to-do because it didn't have a parent project. It was just a random one-off to-do that wasn't related to anything. But now it's a subtask of something else. And I'll talk later about why this is actually important, why you shouldn't delete this. Because every day you don't necessarily want to work on a project. You want to work on a specific part of that project. So when you're actually doing something, the way that gets you to do it is if you break down a project into really small bite-sized pieces, and this database and breaking each parent project into child tasks allows you to break a project down into bite-sized pieces and make everything much more reasonable, understandable, doable, not terrifying. Now let's say that this actually has a child task as well. If it has a child task, we'll go and we'll say call mom is the child task. And you'll notice now that this is a sub-project. So it's a project of a project. So it's a smaller project of a project. So let's say an example would be I have a senior thesis. Senior thesis is like 100, 200 pages, right? And I need to write one specific part of that paper. So chapter 1, let's say. Chapter 1 is not a small thing in its own. It's however many pages it is. Maybe it's 30 pages, maybe it's 10. But it's a big project still, nonetheless. And that means that you should break that down as a sub-project. Because let's say I have chapter 1, and then I have chapter 1 subsection A is a child task, for example. Or research X idea for chapter 1 is a child task. So this is now a sub-project, which means it's a project, but it's a part of another project. Then let's say that it doesn't have a parent project, so it only has child tasks. You'll note it is now a parent project. So that makes it the big project under which everything else falls. So senior thesis would be a parent project, or moving to Berlin would be a parent project, because it is the biggest thing. There's nothing above that. I mean, getting your degree or something, but we'll just ignore that. So that's what type means. And we'll move type up here because we just talked about progress, and we didn't talk about progress yet. Okay, so now we've talked about all of the properties above this, and then we get into some more properties. So this property is progress. So how this automatically filters, and this is kind of the cool thing about this database, but it is a cool thing about the database. I barely even use this, though. I would only suggest you use this if, one, you're really like specific and you very much want to know how far along you are and everything. So, yeah. Maybe you also need to give people updates on your progress on a certain project. So you need to actually have information on how far along you are. That's really useful, this progress, and it automatically updates. If you do not give a damn about knowing your progress, then you can ignore the next however many minutes of this video, and I will put in the description when you can come back to it. Yeah, I don't really know how to, yeah, I'll tell you which number at which you can, so go away if you don't care about this, but before you do, delete all these things that have a little D next to them, because all of the things that have the D next to them feed into that, and they're completely unnecessary if you don't want it. Okay, now you can click on the button that puts you after this part of the video. Okay, if you're still watching, that means you want to have this property. And I'll just tell you quickly how it works. You shouldn't care too much because it's pretty automatic. But basically the way that it works is up here we saw that we have status. If I have just a task, so there's nothing here, then this is the main way that you'll track progress. You'll say it's either wrapping up or whatever, and it will tell you how far along you are numerically, but it doesn't matter because you're tracking your progress kind of here. The way that where this actually does matter is if you have child tasks. So if this is a project and you want to track the progress of your project, every child task has a number of hours associated with it. And when you have finished each child task, or if you're 50% along in each child task, or whatnot, it will then tell you how many hours you've completed out of those estimated hours. And that means that you're X amount on. So a concrete example, let's say call mom is a child task here. And let's say a new task for Berlin is a child task. And look up secondhand fur is a child task as well. So each of these we can see if we scroll a bit. Doop-a-doop. One of them doesn't have an estimated time, and two of them are done, so this isn't going to be a great example. But the estimated time total of all of these, let's say that we make call mom to have an estimated time of 2 hours, and its status is not started. If we go back, we'll see that those two, so these 3 tasks, there were 2 tasks that were both an hour, and they're both done. Done means they're 100% finished. And 1 task was 2 hours, and it's not done at all, so it's 0%. So that means that 50% progress, because 100% of those hours is 4 hours, and 2 of those hours are done, and 2 of those hours are still undone. So that means it's 50%. But let's say I went into call mom, and this is a weird example, but let's say that we're, in progress talking to mom, so it's an hour done. It will now tell you that you're 75% done. So that's how that works. And if I had a parent project here, this parent project would then read the progress of this project, and kind of it all wraps up so that you can get an overarching progress view of your projects. That means that when you're making a project, you have to fill in a lot of those subtasks at first, and I'll tell you how I use this database later to do that. But anyway, that's what that does. And so if you don't care about this, delete progress, delete hours left, delete resulting hours, rolled up hours, done sub hours, completed hours, parents progress, and that's it. So those all have a D at the end of them because you can delete them. Okay, now we have the other related databases. These are just relations. Again, they relate this card to other cards in other databases. And so this is related to civic projects or to pet projects or to flights. So let's say that this was like upgrade ticket. It's gonna take forever to, okay, upgrade ticket, and it's related to a flight. Let's see if I have any examples here. Boston. It's related to this. So from when I'm going from Boston to Berlin, I want to upgrade that flight. So that just allows me to kind of relate things that are related so that I can, when I go in to actually do this, I can really quickly then go to the page that has all the relevant info. So this page will have my booking number, my passport number, my frequent flyer information, all the relevant stuff to effectively do this task. These aren't really necessary. If it's old, that means that it's created more than 3 months ago. You can make that larger. So if you only want old things to be 5 months ago, you can go in and do that. And that then kind of, if you haven't done something in 3 months, you can kind of know that maybe you're never going to do it. Sorry. These things don't really matter. Okay, cool. So that covers what all those properties do. So now, here's what happens. I have a certain project, let's say. What I want to do when I use this database is I always want to fill in those 5 important properties, right? But that's really annoying because who the hell wants to go in and add those properties every single time that you make a new to-do? It's very annoying. So here's what I do. Throughout the day, I'll go in, I'll just like add these little things, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, I'll go in and I'll tag them. And I'll even have this thing where I'll create templates so I don't need to do all those tags. Let's hide all these properties because they're annoying as hell. I have a bunch of different templates. And let's say I have a personal action template. And that already tags it with not started, tags it with personal, gives it a date, has like links. And you can even then have important personal project and just make a lot of different templates. I wouldn't make too many so that you don't have to scroll too much because then it kind of defeats the purpose of making it very easy. But you could basically have like important personal thing and then tag the importance as important. So that way you don't have to add in this tag either. Because if I go here and I have to like, me just clicking that one template is one click, but here I have to go and click this, then click that, then click dates, then click estimated time, then click status, then click tags. Here I only need to fill in the estimated time and importance. So that's one way to do that. So at the end of the day, I'll go into all those like added to-dos that I didn't give properties to, and I will make them use one of the templates to assign it to an area and whatnot, and then it will have all the tags that I need it to have, and then I'll decide when I want to do it. And another thing that I'll do if I have a project is I will go in and I will, let's say, I'll add child tasks. So senior thesis. What I'll want to do is go in and just add all my child tasks here, or even, and after I make this video, I'll go in and make this a part of the template. What you can do is create basically a linked version of this specific database. So the action tracker, and I'll put this in the template so you don't actually have to do this. I will make so this is now a linked version of this database. So it's the same database, but it's a different view. and then I'll filter it. So I'll go in and I'll filter for the parent project contains, parent project contains, and then I want this specific page. So this senior thesis. So I only want, so then I can, I only want senior thesis, and then let's say add a filter where the tags contains academic, and let's say importance is high. And then I can go in and I can just add a bunch of child tasks, and they'll all adopt those properties because I filtered those things. So when I add things to this filtered view, it will adopt those properties. So if we said like draft chapter 1 subsection A, you'll notice that it shows up in the child task section. And if I open it, because it was in that filtered view, it automatically adopts high importance and those specific tags. And I should have also said not started. And that way I'll just go back to that previous page. That way I can kind of just create a list of a bunch of child tasks, assign them times, and then I'll just have my list, then I'll just have a list of things that I have to do for this, and they'll show up at the right time, and they'll be properly tagged, and then this will also know kind of the progress of those tasks and then be able to show you how far along you are in your senior thesis. You'll also notice that now senior thesis is not visible in this view. That's because I filtered it to, there are lots of filters, but basically I filtered it so that it doesn't show you projects. The reason why is because, again, you aren't working on your senior thesis today. You're working on subsection A of chapter 1 of your thesis, and it's a rough draft. And so you really want to break things down. Like this database is made to help you work better, not to like stress yourself out. So how you work on things is you break them down into the tiniest of bits possible, because it's really easy to like draft the first paragraph of subsection A of chapter 1 of your thesis, but it's really hard to sit down and be like, work on your thesis today. So you really want to break it down like as much as possible. And so you don't want to be looking at projects, you only want to be looking at the specific tasks of that day. So because that previous senior thesis now has child tasks, its type is a parent project, and it's not showing up in this view because, again, I want to be working on the tasks. Let's see, what else? That's mostly it. And I can't pause because Loom eliminated their unlimited video timing thing, so now I have to use my regular computer screen recorder. What this looks like for me is I will then always use those templates, and so everything will have an emoji. I'll go in and it will tell me like number 1 thing is priority. So let's just give this high set. It'll tell me what my priorities are. It'll tell me what I can either do or defer, and then, which is like low importance or, and then it will tell me kind of how long it's going to take to do it. I can also have, if I use the hours left, which is based off of the status, and let's just give these random times, and let's give this one wrapping up, just that there's interesting. So now it can tell me that though these things are estimated to be 7 hours total, because I'm already progressing on all of them, I only have 3.8 hours left. And so that can also help you kind of time your day, because if you have a whole list of to-dos and your hours left shows you that it's going to take 20 hours to do all of them, you know that you aren't going to be able to get through all of them. So really prioritize those ones that you should be prioritizing, and then as the day goes on, you can just be like, okay, you know what, fuck it, this one I'm gonna make that due next Wednesday because I'm not going to be able to do it today. And so that's how I do that, is I really try and prioritize, like only have a few things in this view every day, and then at the end of the day or like when it kind of fills up with to-dos, I'll go in and I'll say, okay, when should I work on that? And that allows me to distribute my work. It allows me to be reasonable about what I can do that day and allows me to break things down. So how databases work in general, a few things we noticed is that we have this filtering view, so you can filter it to see specific things. That's how you could filter to see things that only have to do with financial academic stuff. You can also sort it. I've created a sort property that sorts it according to priority. So leave that. And then after that, I said I want the things that'll take the longest to go first. So that's how I sorted that. And then you can also view this in different views. So each card has its own like information and data, and we can see that in different ways. So for example, we can look at a calendar of tasks. So for me, for work, how I do this is I go in and I'll usually look at my calendar and I'll say, okay, it looks like I have a bunch of things to do on Friday, and so or whatever day this is, Saturday, and I'll move it and I'll spread things out a bit more. That way things are really distributed over each day. I'm never piling everything onto one day, and I can visually see what I'm meant to be doing each day. I'll then also look at it in a board view. So I'll look at my projects by status. And so this is filtering, again, to show you any type that does contain project. And it will kind of show you their status. So this should also show you, because projects are not necessarily shown by their own like status tag, but rather by their own progress. Let's find progress. Doop-a-doop-a-doop. Where is it? We can see that this is 91% done, so actually we'll move this over to wrapping up because it's 91% done. But if it were less, then we'd move it around. So that I can just kind of see quickly what's the progress there, what's the deadline, is it done, and I can move it along and just kind of give an overview of all of my projects. So it's differentiating between a high-level overview and a low-level task-driven overview. You can then, for example, if we go back to the Live Hub template, which again, copy the entire thing. Don't only copy one template, because then they won't work. Let's say in the budget template, I go in and I scroll to the bottom after my dying computer gets over itself. I then want to filter in the financial to-dos. I want to add a filter where the tags contains financial. And actually we'll turn this into a group and we'll say either tag contains financial or tag contains purchase. So now it will only show me things that have to do with money. That way when I'm in my budget template, I can look, oh, are there any to-dos that I have to do for this? I can then kind of hide specific properties because these don't really matter to me, and I can only look at like specific things that I want to look at, etc. I have to go in and fix this so it's not as ugly later. But that's how that works. So again, I made a filtered view, and how you would do that is you do the backslash, type the backslash like that, and then type the word linked, and then create linked database. And then you would try and search for the action tracker or any other database that you're linking. And here. And that's how you do that. Cool. Okay, if you have questions, leave them in the comments. Oh God, that was awful. I don't think I've ever said that. I'm never going to say that again. Okay, cool. Yep, let me know if you have questions. I hope it's okay. I hope it makes sense, and have a great life.